Hello everyone, what you're hearing is the ABC News theme, which is the Australian Broadcasting Company. Their news theme remixed by the band Pendulum into a rock song. It's pretty cool, I like it. How's everyone doing? I hope you're good. I'm aware that it's been a couple of months since I uploaded anything to this channel. It wasn't meant to go that way, I just got lazy combined with busy and ended up doing nothing. To recap, where have I been? I think there are going to be several sections to this video, but I'll just start by telling you where I've been insofar as anyone has been wondering. I published the Marvel video like 3 weeks before my examinations were finished, so I basically, as soon as that was done, I spent all of my time studying for them. And I had an extra subject last semester, so I was quite busy. So that was 3 weeks to a month that I just had no time for anything creative or anything I actually wanted to do. And you always think at the end of exams that as soon as they're over, you're going to get back onto that project you've been meaning to work on. But of course, everything that seemed interesting when you were studying for exams immediately loses its luster when they're finished. And, you give yourself a few days off, and a few days becomes several days, and several days becomes many days, and that happens. But even though I was technically on break for the past month, I did have stuff to do. For one thing, I had to move house, which is always a pain. Wasn't much of a problem, but it certainly takes up some time. And I had a research job helping a author at my university write a book, or just doing background research for him, which was pretty cool. So it's been a happy kind of busy, but I have been busy. And otherwise, I've just been playing altogether too much Overwatch, so I haven't been able to finish another video since the Marvel one, which is annoying. I have the next video is underway, and I'm hoping that I can get it done in the next week, but yeah, I don't know. I've been missing my targets recently, and I'm sorry for that. I did notice, I don't know when this happened, but it was sometime in the last month that I hit 1,000 subscribers, and thank you very much for that. I started this channel just more as a place to air my ideas than anything. I've never really thought that I would succeed at this or have a mass audience or anything like that. I'm not saying that I ever will. But this was more just a place for me to experiment with ideas and just try to focalize them and create the best version of those ideas and state them as clearly as I possibly could. And like some novelists say, I was trying to get rid of that part of myself, so you don't have to continue to think about the same idea that you've had in your mind. You can have some sense of finality once you've completed a video with the idea in it, and of course you can go back and revise it later, but just having completed a project about the idea allows you to think about other things, and that's kind of what this has been about. However, an audience is certainly appreciated, and 1,000 people is, or however many it is now, is, it's more than I ever dreamed of having, so thank you very much to each and every one of you for subscribing. I really do appreciate it. But now that I have 1,000 subscribers, I thought I would explain my ethic, sort of my philosophy. For one thing, it's a bit odd that I have 1,000 subscribers because I think I've made a lot of decisions that should scare people away or were calculated to prevent people becoming particularly friendly with me, and not because I don't like any of you, just because I was trying to avoid this personality game that seems to happen a lot on YouTube. Unfortunately, most of YouTube is just a cult of personality, and there are obviously many super famous examples of that, of people who have absolutely nothing to say and no ideas and nothing of any substance or content to give to the world, but who nevertheless have massive followings. And they obviously don't need explanation. There have always been such people. But there are also thinking people. There are, people. There are people that I like who have real ideas and who, seem to be serious people, but who nevertheless, I think, lean on their personality too much to give themselves power. And I wanted to avoid that. I wanted my criticism to be judged on its own merits, rather than people agreeing with me because they liked my personality. To give you some examples, as much as I really like Nerdwriter, and his videos are so much better than mine, and better than I could ever imagine making them in some cases, I feel like he does cultivate this certain aesthetic, there's certain ideas about himself, with his, the video you see inside his apartment, and the way he presents himself, and he's nicely attired all the time, and you see his girlfriend, and he's clearly trying to endear himself to his audience in a way, which is fine. It's just not really what I wanted to do. I also think, like, Jim Sterling has, I've mentioned him before. I think he has some good ideas. I think a lot of the time he really doesn't, and really counts on his personality and his comedy to carry the piece. And I think someone like Jordan Peterson, if any of you know Jordan Peterson, he's this quack psychologist who, frankly, has never said a cogent sentence in his life, who nevertheless has this mass following of people, I guess faux intellectual people who think they know things. But he's just a cult leader. He's simply a guru who really has nothing of any academic merit to contribute to the world, and relies entirely on the fact that people like him as a fighter and as a human to carry his brand. So, I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to be just a critic, and just be judged based on the merits of my criticism. And I don't know how well I've achieved that. Obviously, it's impossible to completely separate personality from it, but I'm lucky in that I don't really have much of a personality, so it's a very natural decision. And I think you can see it, the way I've tried to go about this. I have never really given you my name or really any sort of moniker with which you can refer to me. There is unintentional fallacy, but that's such a difficult title. It's so hard to refer to me as that. It's not the sort of thing that's ever likely to catch on. It's not easy to say or type. So, in that way, I sort of try to keep some distance between myself and the criticism. And I don't introduce the videos. I don't ask for likes or subscribers or anything like that. I was actually considering doing more of just a pure lecture style format with like the sort of lecture slides you would see at a university, to try and keep any sense of personality out of the videos, but I found that they were just too boring that way, so I animated them, which I don't know if that was a good decision. It takes a lot of time to animate them, time I could be spending writing more criticism, but oh well. As to money, now I want to promise that there will never be any ads on any of my videos, so long as I edit the videos correctly and they don't get copyright claimed by people and other people put ads on them for me, which has happened a couple of times because I was careless. But otherwise, I won't turn advertising on. I certainly wouldn't do it now because I don't get enough views for it to mean anything. And otherwise, I really dislike advertising quite sincerely. So I'm trying, I'll stay away from that as far as I possibly can. And look, as to other funding sources, again, this is more of a hobby for me anyway, but as to something like Patreon, I'm very hesitant to get a Patreon or turn anything like that on, just because I think the videos, or at least I am not professional enough, yet anyway. I don't know if that'll ever change, but the videos aren't of a consistent enough quality, they don't release regularly enough, and I just, I can't promise that. I can't promise consistency for the foreseeable future. So I wouldn't get a Patreon until that changes. I mean, the other side of it though is just that money just tends to fundamentally change the nature of any relationship into which it enters. It changes the way both parties perceive that relationship, and it becomes something of a business transaction. It's really unavoidable. And I really resent money for doing that. It ruins friendships and families, and it's quite a pernicious social institution, really. And I just want to stay as far away from it as I can. It would be nice to be able to do this professionally, but I think I need more training, and I certainly need more time anyway. So basically, I'm just going to keep doing this, for as long as I can afford to, and we'll go from there. Anyway, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. I thought the other thing I could do that would be fun would just be to go through some of the comments I got on the Marvel problem video I made, which was a lot more successful, or at least a lot more widely viewed than I expected it to be. Most people liked, of the people who chose to like or dislike it, it still has a positive like ratio. But a lot of people did seem to dislike it, and there are a lot of negative comments on there. And look, I don't respond to many comments just because I don't, I would go insane just arguing with people on the internet, and I don't want to do that. But also I feel like a lot of the comments I get ask questions that are sort of answered in the video, and I just don't see it as my job to relitigate things that I've already explained. And perhaps I didn't explain it that well, but when you come at me with a question that I've answered, I just don't see it as my job to sit there and explain it to you again. So I don't respond to many. I think, and I don't want to mock people who are have sincere criticism for me. I think there was certainly a couple of good criticisms in the comments, and I of those that are in there, I certainly acknowledge them, or try to acknowledge them. Otherwise, there seem to be a lot of comments here that are from people who aren't subscribed, aren't really interested in what I have to say, who just sort of showed up just to criticize me specifically. And some of them are personal attacks, which are very funny. There was one, I'll see if I can find it. But to start from the top, someone pointed out that the breaking the rule, establishing the rule, breaking the rule thing that I pointed out in Iron Man, Ant-Man, and Doctor Strange is actually called Chekhov's guns. And I didn't realize this storytelling device had a name. So thank you for pointing that out to me. I guess it was one of my blind spots. As we go down the list, these are the most recent comments from the 21st of July. Some of them are essays. One of them points out that I've only considered the 3 of the 15 films, and therefore they're all the same, and that doesn't make sense. Fair enough. Very much see where you're coming from, but 100% agree with you. People have been so suckered in the MCU they don't even give other films a chance. The only reason Batman vs Superman got hate was because it wasn't an MCU film. I have to disagree with that. Batman v Superman got hate because it was terrible. Ant-Man hate. This isn't a problem that Marvel created, but one that existed before the MCU. Yeah, you see, I agree with that. I agree. This problem did exist before the MCU. It's just Marvel has perfected it, and they have done it to death. And I think I called it the Marvel problem because, they didn't necessarily create they didn't create intertextuality or anything, really, in the films. But they have taken the formula and they've refined it to the point at which it's created this factory assembly line, production line model of filmmaking. And I think it's the Marvel problem because they really are the only company in this business. A lot of people try to copy Marvel. Like Sony tried to copy them with the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man films, and they wanted to have a cinematic universe including like Venom and stuff, and that blew up spectacularly. And I think that Fantastic Four film they rebooted was meant to be the start of a cinematic universe, and Ghostbusters, the female Ghostbusters, was like the start of a cinematic universe. This new Mummy film is apparently the start of a cinematic universe. there are so many so many studios that try to copy Marvel. None of them really ever succeed, and that's why it's the Marvel problem, because Marvel is really, they really own this design, and they're the only ones who've done it correctly so far. Someone called me a DC hippie. See, this is interesting. There were a lot of comments like this, a lot of people who, seem to point out that I only talk about DC, and the one Marvel video I have is negative. And, it's a fair criticism. I guess I do have a bias towards DC. I guess I do read more DC than Marvel. Certainly at the moment. I used to read a lot of Daredevil and Hawkeye, but, I haven't read the latest Daredevil. I've heard it's okay, but, Hawkeye's never really been the same since Matt Fraction left. And, I used to read Vision as well, but that ended too. So, look, I just read whatever's good. But I think if you look at my DC videos, I've been pretty critical of them a lot of the time. Like, even in that Superman video, I talk about how Man of Steel was a bad movie. And look, I have a whole video bashing Batman v Superman. So I really don't think I'm biased in the sense that a lot of the people in the comments were accusing me of being. But anyway, spoiler alerts. Well, yeah, fair enough. Wow, you really obsess about minor things. Yeah, that's true. Well, if you critics don't like watching it, then by all means don't watch it. Us fans will always watch it. See, this is like, there's another genus of comments on here that basically says, like, the films are successful, people like them, why do you have to criticize them if they're successful? I mean, this is not like a counterpoint at all. I don't understand this point. Like, just because a single subset of people like something doesn't mean that they should be immune from criticism. And furthermore, the Marvel films, I think, are very important to criticize because they are such a massive social institution at this point. They're so well ingrained in the fabric of popular culture and everyday culture that it really is important to talk about them. So I just don't understand people who tell me not to criticize it if I don't like it. It really doesn't make any sense. Let's see. Not sure Marvel is the modern Star Wars equivalent. That looks like a pretty well-reasoned comment. To find the new Star Wars, maybe we should look at a film that changes all other films to follow. Okay, well, I mean, on that standard, I think Marvel has done that because, a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of film studios are trying to copy Marvel now and trying to make their films into these cinematic universes. Let's see. This entire argument is invalidated by one single film, The Empire Strikes Back. You talk about the legacy that Star Wars left behind and catapulted imaginations everywhere. Okay, how about the legacy of Empire Strikes Back, a film which was entirely motivated by business and Jedi followed... A film entirely motivated by business? Okay. I guess I don't know enough about the history of Empire Strikes Back to argue with you. I don't know if that was true, however... Marvel sucks. Wow, Viddy hating on Marvel from a channel that clearly favors DC. Crazy, huh? Yeah, again, I really don't think I favor DC, but anyway. Makes a video entitled Marvel Problem, 80% of all prior videos are DC related. Yep, that seems about right. What else is on here? Entertainment is entertainment at the end of the day. See, that there's another comment basically saying, don't criticize it because it's just entertainment. I just think that's ridiculous. I almost decided to write out a thoughtful response until I looked at your page and saw that it's like 99% DC content. I wish that some of these people would watch like my other videos. You see, I guess what really bothers me about this is that these people clearly like landed on this page, never considered watching anything else that I've made, and just decided to respond to this one video, based apparently on the thumbnails of the others. Yeah, okay. Blah blah blah. Why are film guys always such pretentious blowhards? For one thing, I'm not a film guy by any standards. I really don't know nearly enough about films. I'm more like a literature guy. and even then I'm kind of a pretty bad literature guy. As for Blowhard, though, I mean, that's fair. That's fair enough. The Avengers didn't have a plot, explains the plot of the Avengers. Okay, here's the thing, though. When I said the Avengers is a plotless movie, I didn't mean it was literally plotless. It's like everyone in the comments decided that I meant the Avengers is an entirely plotless movie. Of course, it has some plot, right? But the plot it has is such a wafer of a plot that I think the hyperbole of plotless was justified. That's what I meant there. I saw a few people who were confused about that. As we go down the list, here we go. But if the masses of people like the Marvel movies as is there really a problem, or is there a real problem? Yes, absolutely. Just because a lot of people like something doesn't mean that it becomes immune from criticism. I don't like your video. See, that's a very honest comment. I appreciate that. Thank you, Aman. Terrible analysis. Blanket statements don't make for engaging analysis. I mean, I could say the same of your comment. I think that Thor marketing was different, similar to Guardians of the Galaxy. Fair enough. I completely disagree with you. Star Wars relies as much on you knowing what happened in the earlier movies in order to have any kind of emotional weight. Yes. But, well, I mean, the thing is that the first 3 Star Wars films are clearly part of a trilogy, whereas in the Marvel films it's more like a larger web. And, like Hawkman, Falcon, appearing in Ant-Man isn't, that's not really emotional weight. That's just sort of a classic, crossover moment, which I think is, far cheaper than obviously just following the linear plot of a film or a film trilogy. Very, very interesting observation. Thank you. I needed that. Angry Joe is a whining little bee. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, BuzzFeed commented. I forgot about this. On this episode of the Marvel Hate Trend. I think it's actually BuzzFeed. Maybe it's just someone with their logo. Anyway. Somebody's a hater. Lol. The idiotic nature of this video is astounding. I don't like Marvel. I love DC. Nice video. I didn't even mention DC in this video. Oh, I did mention DC. I mentioned how they have been criticized on the same basis as Marvel. I don't think I said I love them, though. Are you going to do a video on Man of Steel and Wonder Woman sharing the exact same story? Of course not. Well, no, of course not, because I actually haven't seen Wonder Woman, because I assume it's probably terrible. So, you're right about that. What else is on here? Oh, actually, it wasn't a response to the Marvel video, but this, I think, is one of my favorite comments of all time from Amy Mizuno, and I'll finish with this. God, could this British twat sound any more like a condescending douchebag? I think I laughed for several minutes when I read that. I didn't realize that I sounded so British. I mean, Amy Mizuno sounds like a Japanese name, so maybe she's not an English speaker or a native English speaker. But I really didn't think I sounded that British. I guess I do. Anyway, the comments go on like this, and look, some people agreed with me, and some people didn't agree with me, and some people had good arguments, and some people really didn't. I think the thing is, a lot of people like Marvel films, and so of course a lot of people are going to come to their defense. But I don't think that is a reason not to criticize something. So anyway, there's my defense of it. Otherwise, I think I've got like nearly 28,000 views on this Marvel video at the moment, which is incredible. That's like 3 times the next highest, almost 3 times the next highest number of views I have on a video. And the next highest number of viewed video I have, terrible sentence, you know what I mean, I made like over a year earlier than this Marvel one. So, it's crazy. I think it is just the video, though, that's become popular, not the channel, because it hasn't really carried over onto the others, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm just happy to have anyone watching, but that was fun. And before I go, I just want to give you an update on what's happening with the channel, because there are more videos coming, contrary to what might have been suggested by my long silent hiatus. But I have been working on a video. It just keeps getting interrupted, unfortunately. But I've been working on a video, sort of a review. It's more of a review than I normally do. But it's a review of Batman Year 2, which is a comic from the 80s, published pretty, like, it's in the same, sort of couple of years as The Dark Knight Returns, Year 1, and Watchmen as well. So it's from that period that I seem to talk about a lot. But it's not from a famous author, and it's like not a very famous comic book, but it bears quite a famous name, so I thought it would be interesting to talk about. And look, hopefully I'll get that done in the next week or so, though, I have been sort of missing a lot of my deadlines recently, so we'll see. And unfortunately, university resumes quite soon, but I tend to be more productive when university's on anyway, so maybe that'll be a good thing. Otherwise, there is going to be like a proper, 1,000 subscriber milestone thing. I'm going to explain what unintentional fallacy is, because I didn't just pick that name randomly. I did kind of think about what it meant, and as I sort of interact with and collide with people in my daily life, I see a lot of people who could really benefit from understanding what an unintentional fallacy looks like. So I'm going to explain what that is, and hopefully someone will find it interesting. It certainly will be a very pretentious video, but, sometimes you got to be pretentious. Otherwise, there is a video I want to do quite sincerely about modernizing Batman, like writing a Batman that is modern in the sense that his war on crime is basically depicted in the contemporary language of criminal justice, because the notion of a war on crime is quite an antiquated idea at this point, even though DC still uses that term a lot. So I'm going to make that video soonish. I really want to get to that. I also want to do a review of DK3, because it was just such a mess, and I have to talk about it. I want to talk about the ending of the Handmaid's Tale, actually, the book version anyway, because I thought it was brilliant, but maybe I'll do that as a blog post. I'm not decided. And the other thing I have that I wanted to do was a comparison of the film The End of the Tour by James Ponsoldt, directed by James Ponsoldt, and the book, or I guess it's a sort of a diarized interview between David Foster Wallace and David Lipsky, just after Infinite Jest was published, called Although Of Course You End Up Becoming Who You Are, and The End of the Tour is an adaptation of that interview. But I think once you read the book and watch the film, it becomes very clear that sort of Hollywood's had its hands on this story, and I think it shows you something very interesting about the nature of filmmaking. So I really want to, put those two side by side and explain what happened, or what I think happened. So that's going to be coming up sometime in the next 6 months. I guess I'll hopefully get to most of these. I think in general I'm going to try to focus on longer form videos instead of the series of videos that I did with Before Watchmen. And as much fun as it was to have an ongoing series with its own branding and stuff, I got really tired of talking about Before Watchmen, and I really sort of trapped myself there in that I had to get to the end of it before I could do something else. So I think what I'm going to do, and I think what I'm better at doing, is longer form, single topic, one whole video encapsulates everything. And yeah, that's what I'm thinking about doing. So I hope that this update was useful to someone. I hope someone was interested in where I went, or not. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, thank you for the subscribers, and thank you for watching. I promise I'm not going to start saying that. But otherwise, I guess just, happy trails, and I'll see you around.